Hello, 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 and welcome to everyone from around the globe. We're so excited that you are here with us. We are just giving our attendees a chance to make their way into our panel. It is so wonderful to be with you here today. And as our attendee numbers are increasing, people are joining, probably coming from our exhibit hall or jumping in from our last session. Thank you to the phenomenal Dr. Terry Carell Reed for kicking off SDM 2021. And she moderated our first session. She also did our welcome. So the first session was actually quite powerful. It was about One Caribbean, how we enable regional integration through digital transformation. It was such an important panel. It was informative, and I was very impressed by how candidly the panelists spoke, and I was so blown away. I was almost late for this session. My name is Alicia Ali, and I am your moderator today for this session on technology innovations, value chains, agribusiness, speaking the language of youth innovators and getting them on board. Let us know where you're from, drop your country in the chat. We have over 13,000 attendees from over 60 countries around the world for this year's OECS Sustainable Development Movement 2021. And as I said, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. So just to let you know a few housekeeping rules, we will be launching a poll at the end of the session. So make sure you stick around for that. And I just want to let you know that the SDM 2021 is a bilingual event. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a globe, and that will give you the option to have our real-time live French translation. Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. So if you'd like to listen to our session in French, just go ahead and click on that globe. Also, you will notice at the bottom of your screen, you will see a question and answer tab, Q&A, right? So you can engage our panelists directly by sending in your burning questions through that tab, and I will make sure to pose it to them. I promise you that. On that note, let's learn a little bit about our panelists for this session. So we have Carlos Noel. He's the inventor of the mobile desalination plant and fish aggregating device, and also the managing director of Invictus. He is joined by his colleague, Laura Japet. So Carlos overcame many odds to become an award-winning innovator. After dropping out of secondary school, he went on to acquire certifications in robotics, thermodynamics, and Internet of Things and embedded systems. Laura's ultimate aim is to help citizens generate sustainable economic activity in their communities, thereby proving that despite their circumstances, they can rise. She is a marketing specialist and brand manager by training and a social entrepreneur by profession. We also have on with us Dr. Listra Fletcher Paul, or Listra as she likes to be called. She is a lecturer for biometrics, food and agriculture at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. She has over 30 years of experience working in the agriculture sector, mainly across Latin America and the Caribbean, but also in Southeast Asia and East Africa. Keithlyn Carew is the founder and CEO of Helen's Daughters. She is an advocate and change maker in the fields of gender equality in agriculture and rural development in St. Lucia. She is also the founder of Helen's Daughters, a regionally recognized and award-winning nonprofit organization that focuses on rural women's economic empowerment through advocacy, capacity development, and improved market access. We were supposed to be joined by another panelist, Bevon Charles, but unfortunately, Bevon is not able to be with us today, but I must tell you about Bevon. Bevon is the founder and CEO of Akata Farms. She sends her apologies, and Bevon is Akata Farms is a sustainable integrated farm that aims to build sustainable climate smart farms in Grenada and across the Caribbean to increase the region's capacity for export value added products, to strengthen agritourism enterprises and youth involvement in the agriculture industry. So even though Bevon is not able to be with us today, make sure you, our attendees, pop in, make sure you check her out on Google, check out her social media platforms, and see how you can be part of the solution. So let's just jump into today. Carlos and Laura, let's talk about inventions and their importance to the agriculture sector and connections to ending world hunger. What does it require to move from prototype to commercialization? How does public and private sector decision makers how do they create an enabling environment that promotes innovations among entrepreneurs within the agriculture sector?
Alicia, listening to you speak, I think you could just continue with the whole session. Just your energy, your verve, your enthusiasm. I mean, if we're not enthusiastic, we came in here not enthusiastic, then my God, we are certainly. Thank you so much for this warm welcome and just listening to our citation. Wow. If we weren't the ones you were speaking about, we'd be really impressed, I must say. Carlos and I are a team, but I'm the speaker of the two, and Carlos is the one who is the inventor, and he's the one who takes my words and puts it into makes it into a solution. So needless to say, today, I will be doing a lot of the talking, and Carlos will be interjecting here and there where I'm making a fool of myself. He's the award-winning innovator, and I'm just the one who puts the words that he cannot necessarily find to speak out into solutions. So I'm going to share our screen at the moment, and we take our presentation from there. Okay, just let me know if everybody is seeing our screen.
Yes, Laura, we can see your screen. You can put it in presentation mode.
Oh God, not now. Why are you doing this to me now? Okay. Where is it? On the laptop. Oh, I have to put it on the other side.
Ah, so the challenges of technology.
I know. In this time, in this day and age, when we think we are so technologically advanced. Let me just switch. Okay, I can't. What do I do?
Click from beginning.
I did.
At the top. No, mouse is moving.
I did. I don't know.
But can we see the slide?
Okay, I don't want to hold this up anymore, but if you can see the slides, I'll just continue from here. Is that okay, Alicia?
Yes, go ahead, Laura.
Okay, beautiful. Right. No, why are you all the way down here? Great. So the agenda for us, for our presentation, we'll talk a little bit about who we are, how we started, what is Invictus all about, and that will give you some sort of a snippet into what innovations mean to us, our inventions. Then we will talk a little bit about inventions and the importance to the agricultural sector, moving on, as Alicia pointed earlier, about prototyping and moving from just having a product that is a sample, so to speak, into one that we can sell, that the world has access to. And last but not least, we will talk a little bit about the importance of promoting innovations. Why?
So Laura, just start by telling me, so what is Invictus? What is it that you do?
Okay, so Invictus is, thank you, Alicia, for that reprieve. Invictus is a smart oceans technologies company, or rather a climate change adaptation company, but we focus on smart ocean technologies. What do I mean when I say a climate change adaptation company? We focus on solutions or methods or ways that we can adapt to climate change. As you know, climate change is something that us as small nations, we do not necessarily contribute that much to, but we feel the brunt of climate change. So we've dedicated ourselves to finding ways to adapt to. We're not going to change climate change. We cannot reverse it. But what we can learn to do is to live with it. And so that's what we do. Our mission in starting off this company is to be steadfast in committing to addressing the economic and social inequalities intensified by climate change through scientific research, innovation, and partnerships which promotes and achieves sustainability. And we look forward to collaborating with partners who advocate this. This is why this session is so important to us. This is why we jumped on the bandwagon and consented to be a part of it. We need to be on platforms where we can have a voice that is amplified, but our voice alone cannot do it. We needed to be associated with people who are like-minded people or organizations that are prepared to speak to the world about how climate change affects us. So this is what we are about. Our vision and ambition is to inspire young people to take a journey which is exploratory, problem solving, and engenders continuous learning. We realize that if we do not engage young people, then we won't be able to be sustainable in what we're doing. We have to engage young people. We have to take them on this journey with us so that they can be a part of the solutions to the problems that we are facing.
So Laura, let me ask you, I mean, Collis is the inventor. So, you know, especially when you're going through the invention process, you have a prototype. And as the inventor of the mobile desalination plant, how do you go from prototype to commercialization?
Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about that a little later on in our presentation, but let me say this. Suffice it to say, it's not easy. Once Collis has prepared that prototype, that sample, as I like to call it, getting to commercialization is a long and drawn out process. It's not a matter of hours or weeks. Okay, we have this, we have a lookalike, we have a workalike, and we put it together and we have a working prototype. Now comes the real hard work. That's where my job is really intensified. And it takes sometimes months, even years to get it to commercialization. Because if we do not have monies to be able to go through the manufacturing process and being efficient and effective in bringing this product out, then we may as well just remain a research and development company. So it's a long and drawn out process, and it takes a lot of investment.
And one thing I have to add is a lot of investors look at the risk. You know, most investors don't or they're not equipped to take the risk necessary to in research and development. Obviously, if a prototype, if the final product is going to cost like say $5,000 US, the prototype might cost about $60,000 US. So that's one of the challenges is to actually get the funding to jumpstart the research and to actually build a working prototype.
And so when we talk about, you know, this funding, because that is an issue for a lot of our entrepreneurs, especially our young people, you know, who have fantastic ideas. How do you think the public and private sector can make this environment a little bit easier, Collis, so that our young and up-and-coming innovators, entrepreneurs, and social activists don't have to encounter the same challenges that you had to encounter?
Well, that is really like a business, the business end of it, a business question. Maybe Laura might be able to answer that. But if you take a look at the photo in the slide, that's how we started our lab. And this is not how the lab is right now. We literally used up every single cent we had, to upgrade it and upskill it so we could continue the work. So I guess Laura can probably.
That is where venture capitalists and what we call angel investors come along, Alicia. Right now, as Carlos alluded to, we are literally broke. We went for broke on this. We put in all of our life savings and everything into it. And we're still at the point where we're waiting for an injection of capital to commercialize. And that's where we need venture capitalists, but more importantly, angel investors. And angel investors are those philanthropists who are willing to assist without expecting a return, at least not in the near future. Whereas a venture capitalist will go into this thing and want their returns. They want their dividends, which we aren't able to, because as you would expect, that there is a lot of debt that you would go into just trying to get this product off the ground. So venture capitalists would look at us and see the dollar signs going commercial. Angel investors, on the other hand, want to assist to give you a reprieve before having to pay out those dividends. And this is at the stage where we are right now, looking to get some angel investors, but not adverse to entertaining venture capitalists.
Angel
So
investors
it takes
are
a lot.
quite
It takes a lot.
important. Yeah, angel investors are quite important. We actually discussed that in the last session where we were talking about digital transformation. But my last question for you, Laura, before I move on to the next panelist, is do you think that getting angel investors, how difficult or how easy do you see an agri-business, especially one like Invictus, approaching angel investors? And do you think there's that sort of market, that sort of verve for it to encourage them to get on board?
I think a lot of the times there is not a platform for angel investors to know what's out there in the market. I think a lot of the times we have organizations, even our governments, that can do so much more to get us to that point where we can, angel investors know what's out there in the marketplace. Let me give you an example. Alicia, and I have this whole presentation prepared for you. It's unfortunate that I'm not able to go through it the way I want to, but let me suffice it to say that, for instance, our country is going to be represented in Expo 2020 in the EAU. And what we see happening is a lot of the same players are the ones that are going to be represented. We are noted for more than just sea, sand, and sun, right? We have 2 Nobel laureates. We are noted for economics, which has nothing to do with food, nothing to do with rum, nothing to do with sand. We are noted for literature in the person of Sir Derek Walcott. But we also know that we have innovators like Carlos, but we are not on the panel to be broadcasted to the rest of the world in terms of our brand management system that we know can work, that we have exported, and that we are constantly in contact with the people of the Pacific, because this is what they're using right now. Angel investors will only know about us if we are on a platform, an international platform. And I think our governments could do a lot to help this. If you look on the screen right now, we're talking about promoting innovation. You will see that we have a purpose. What is the purpose of innovation, and having a platform such as this, or having a forum where people can know about us? It can open us up to mentoring, capital, advocacy, and who are the actors that we're looking for? We're looking for bank managers to take a chance on companies like us. We're looking at innovation hub managers, economic development officers in our governments and otherwise, lawyers, because at the end of the day, Alicia, one of the things that we have to remember is we have a product in the brand management system that needs to be patented. We have a provisional patent on it. Eventually that will expire. And then guess what? Everywhere that we sell our product to, it opens us up to what we call reverse engineering. So anybody who has half a brain, who's an engineer, can go in there and take that product and re-engineer it, and we're left out. It's the same thing that happened with the steel pan for Trinidad. Trinidad does not hold the patent for the steel pan, despite it having been an innovation or an invention of the Trinis. So we're looking for lawyers that can help us to protect our innovations. Government agencies, universities, some of these universities on an international level have the capacity to assist. We're looking to partner with them, corporations, and as I mentioned, venture and angel investors. We have been in touch with a few, but you know, they're few and far in between. We're looking at investors, we're looking at innovation hubs and co-working space, because guess what? We have our own lab, but some other innovators, they don't. I remember when I first met Carlos, he was operating out of a 4x4. When I went to him to find out what he was doing, I had to basically squeeze around myself around the desalinator. That is how small of a space he was working out of and how big the desalinator was at the time. Now, I will just, speaking of the size, with innovation, we have to be prepared to scale up and scale down and to change our size. So when I first met Carlos and he was working on the desalinator, it was huge. It was in the size, it was in a container, right? In a 20-foot container. Now, if you see the size, I'm just going to draw your attention to this video here that will show you how we have been able to move along.
It's a totally off-grid solar-powered mobile desalination system. It's powered by the sun, so that means zero carbon footprint, cheap to run, free power. It's unique in a sense that we do not discharge the harmful brine into the ocean. The system is also fully mobile. So in case of an approaching storm, we'll always take it to a safe area. Not because of the over the years, and as a Laborian, we always face with a water problem. When it rains, we have no water. During the dry season, we have no water also.
So this is how, if you notice,
Laura, thank you so very much for that. That is such a great way to move to our next panelist. So let me move on to Lystra. So Lystra has had so many decades of experience in the sector. What are the technological breakthroughs, Lystra, that underscore innovative agriculture?
Thank you very much, Alisa, for first of all inviting me to be a panelist, especially among youth with my gray hairs. I'm just going to show a little, just a few slides, nothing major, just in terms of some of the examples in the Caribbean. First of all, I want to say that when we talk about technological breakthroughs, especially for the agriculture and food sector, we're talking about breakthroughs that fundamentally change the dynamics of the industry or the market. So in the case of the agriculture and food sector, we are talking about technologies which reduce our food import bill, which increase our local production, which make the cost of production lower, which increase the demand for healthy food and make us more resilient. So for young people, we're talking about technologies which provide employment, entrepreneurship, save on labor and land, because many of them don't even have access to land. And they're high tech, they're lucrative, they're affordable, and they save the environment. So some of the examples for the Caribbean, for example, this one on the top left is actually a 40-foot container. And at the bottom, you'll see it's a guy in Barbados who is growing lettuce vertically. So he has in a 40-foot container, something the equivalent of 4 acres of lettuce, hydroponically, that he now uses a laptop. He can stay from his home and he knows when the fertilizer levels are down, that he needs to increase fertilizer or increase the water or change the water content, etc. The University of the West Indies, for example, has been doing quite a lot of work with apps. There's one called the AgriMap app, which provides a georeferenced soil and land use map of Trinidad. And it does the capability for it has the capability of identifying soil series and providing soil suitability recommendations. There's also on the right here, there's a precision agriculture app. This is a geophysical sensing mobile app, which is able to determine, for example, the soil properties and develop management zones for precision agriculture. And there are other examples that are not necessarily in the Caribbean, but I think could be very useful. For example, the drones, we use them in the Caribbean. They have the potential, for example, in places like Guyana, which are very remote, to transport inputs and also for surveillance, because as you know, predial larceny is one of the biggest impediments to agricultural production. So using drones for surveillance may be very useful. And recently I read about an institute called the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture in Dubai, where they have been growing highly nutritious crops, superfoods such as quinoa in the desert in extremely high temperatures that thrive and grow in salt water and seawater and brine. So all of this is technologies that not only are in the Caribbean, but are suitable for the Caribbean. And it's not only about technologies for production and productivity. We have a young man in Trinidad who is creating pasta from cassava and sweet potato. We have another group in Trinidad called the Pelori Boss, who is making pelori. I don't know if you know about pelori in Trinidad, but this is pelori with all kinds of inputs, pelori with shrimp, pelori with all kinds of different sauces. And then there are also applications that can be used, for example, for disaster risk management, using your cell phone. And of course, we do it already, to alert of any particular weather patterns that may be detrimental to our production systems. We can use the technologies, for example, for extension using social media. One of the things that this whole thing of bioanalytics does is that it connects the disconnected. So by looking at market profiles, you can determine who is buying what and then target your particular product or commodity to suit that particular person. And not only that, it provides those persons who are the market with an opportunity to express themselves so we can know what are their needs, especially when you're talking about creating demand for healthy, nutritious foods. The data analytics would allow you to do just that, to understand what they want and to then tailor to their needs, to understand what it is that makes them tick. Another important aspect of it in terms of not only production and productivity is the link with the Sustainable Development Goals, especially using our electronic dashboards. We use it, for example, when we're showing the COVID figures. But what about using that link to show how the food and nutrition security is linking with, for example, your health status, the number of deaths that are associated with diabetes and hypertension and the NCDs. So the data analytics has a very strong and a very important role to play, not only in production and productivity, but also in terms of all the other aspects of the food chain, the whole food system. And I also wanted to add, it has an important part to play with extension. In the same way that the social media can be used to spread fake news about, efficiency of vaccines, etc. Why not use that same social media to push information to the farmers in terms of videos that can be used for production, and also using TikTok and all of those other devices and apps that can help to increase the knowledge and to the farmers so that it's more easily and readily available, because especially now where you're in a COVID environment, you can't do the visits as much. I just want to say, in terms of the data analytics, if we can't measure it, we can't improve it. One of the things about data analytics is it's important that you know where you are, to assess where you are so that you can predict where you want to go. So it has a very important role in connecting the disconnected, giving a voice to the people who are normally voiceless. And it provides not only information on productivity, but information on gross margins, efficiency, markets, adoption, sustainability indicators, health indicators. But for this to happen, I think we have to inculcate a culture of data collection, big data and data analytics in the Caribbean. one of the shortcomings that everybody talks about in the Caribbean is that we don't have any data. But we're not talking about traditional data here. It may be texts, it may be pictures, it may be even messages that are going out that the data analytics can then sift and modify and analyze so that you can predict what is likely to happen. And something that Carlos and Laura said just now, we have to talk about incubators and upscaling, because how do we provide that environment that allows these young entrepreneurs to look at the business aspect of it, and also how we can support them in upscaling. And I think this is a part that we have the private sector and also the government to partner with, so that we can help them to take it to the next level, where it's more than just an idea, but it's lucrative and it provides an income. And it also makes a big difference in terms of the metrics for food and nutrition security and food systems in the Caribbean. Thank you.
If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. That really did strike a very serious chord with me, Lystra, because especially in the Caribbean, food security is something that we have been discussing for eons. We have a very high food import bill. I don't think there is one country in the Caribbean that can say they produce more locally than they import to sustain their population. And I do think, again, that data, as you said, plays a critical role in how we move forward, how we advance. And we talk about disruptions, especially in this technological age. There are so many avenues to collect data that we need to start taking advantage of it. It is not just about our GDP. The health of our nation impacts our economic sustainability, it impacts our social systems, it impacts our health systems, it impacts every aspect of our countries and our economies. Thank you very much for that presentation. And what a way to move in to my next question for my next panelist. Keithlin, we always look at agriculture in very isolated terms. You know, when people say agriculture, they think of farming, you know, that back-breaking labor, getting up at sunrise, you know, breaking your back in the hot sun. You know, you see images of people passed out in the fields from exhaustion. And it has been portrayed and marketed as that type of occupation. And it creates a particular mindset. And it is responsible for how a lot of millennials and the younger generation view agriculture. And it is no longer thought of as the green gold industry. So the new outlook on agriculture factors into placing the farming with the value chains, and that is powered by data analytics, as Lystra was saying, and technology, as Carlos and as Laura was touching on. What is your outlook on agriculture in this regard, and how would you recommend we change this cultural mind shift? This cultural mindset, and we shift perspective to allow us to be able to view agriculture differently?
Thank you so much, Alicia, and it is such a pleasure and an honor to be on this panel, including with Lystra, with Carlos, and with Laura. My co-panelists actually touched on quite a bit that I have in my presentation, but really what I want to do with my section is to challenge the audience. I really focus my presentation on the fact that we're trying to speak the language of youth in ag innovation. And for me, speaking the language of youth in ag innovation is essentially trying to make agriculture sexy, which is why it led me to sort of title my presentation as Agriculture Rebranded. Give me 1 second so I can share. So I wanted to actually ask the audience, before I go into everything, what is the first image that comes to mind when they think of a farmer? And I want them to be brutally honest. I don't want any politically correct questions. So you have about 30 seconds. You can put it in the chat. What do you actually think? What's your perspective of a farmer? I'm seeing a few answers. Maybe you can get a few more. All right, dirt, male, labor intensive, planting something, hardworking, boots and ragged clothes, dirty and always moving. working way too hard, dirty, dusty, hard labor. Thank you. This is exactly what I wanted to touch on. We keep talking about innovation. We keep talking about the need for youth to enter the agricultural sector and placing the blame on them quite often. We keep talking about, obviously, our food security, as you mentioned, Alicia, and so on. But really, what are we doing to change the stereotypes? We have this expectation that our youth are going to wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to go into this sector, knowing full well that our own families would never push us into this sector. I'm a living example of that. I'm from a family, generations of farmers, and my background is in political science and international relations. And I know several people in my island who are literally from a family of farmers, and they were never pushed into the sector. I mean, how can we expect these large-scale innovations to match regions like Asia and Africa and so on when we're limited by these negative stereotypes? Obviously, agriculture is integral.
Keithlin, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You just when your presentation was, getting a little bit hot there.
I don't know what happened. Well, technology. But again, I was saying that agriculture is integral to our nation's sustainable development, and obviously not only our nation, but globally. But really, it's hindered by an appeal, an image appeal. And really, we oftentimes you hear policymakers and also in our own local populations that the current youth, they're lazy, they lack work ethic, they don't want to do a hard day's labor and so on. But how are we creating that enabling environment for them to thrive in the agricultural sector? This, all right. Which is why I challenge the audience, and I've been trying to challenge and rebrand agriculture because it's in need of a major rebrand. For decades, we've been trying to resuscitate the sector. We have been trying to focus on import substitution. We have been trying to focus on different varieties, targeting markets. But what we haven't been trying to focus on is the fact that we have an aging farming population. And obviously the sector is not at all attractive to youth. And can you blame us for not being attracted to youth? As the audience had alluded, agriculture has negative stereotypes associated with it, from hard work under the sun, muddy boots, and little to show for it financially. And this is on the production side. I'm really happy that Carlos and Laura mentioned the struggles to get finance for modern innovations like their mobile desalination plants, which leads me to focus on the fact that social entrepreneurs, nonprofit organizations, and so on, and change makers in our region consistently are relying on old and traditional finance models that just aren't working. Whereas regions such as Africa and Asia and so on actually have access to angel investment, as Laura had mentioned. There are accelerators and incubators, fellowships that are available to not only finance these innovations, but to lead and guide them to long-term sustainability. And really, what are the major stumbling blocks for youth to actually enter the market and to make it look attractive, aside from rebranding agriculture and what a farmer looks like, turning a farmer to an agricultural entrepreneur? There are three huge stumbling blocks. Obviously, I mentioned it. The first one is the limited long-term support. And this is not just in the form of access to finance and so on, but the incubators, the accelerators, and so on. You find that these persons have mentorship, have access to pro bono services, from legal services to business development and so on, among actual financial support. Barriers to land ownership. If you are in the Caribbean and you've heard the term family land, you know all too well the struggles of owning or getting ownership to family land and the difficulties of it. And it's even worse for young farmers. Already these persons don't have access to large scale farms, and oftentimes they're probably farming on family land, which is quite expensive if you actually try to take the steps to getting to owning a piece of land. And finally, you're literally connecting the lack of access to or the ownership of land to limited access to financial systems. Again, as I mentioned, we are relying consistently on traditional finance mechanisms to actually fund some of these innovations and so on. We know that our traditional banking sectors are two things: risk averse and collateral based. And obviously with youth in agriculture, it doesn't equate. Even, for example, in some of our larger islands, like Jamaica, for example, the agricultural lending portfolio is only 5%. That says a lot when consistently we have these forums and we talk about food security and the impetus and the importance to support our young farmers, our women farmers. But what are we actually doing to create that enabling environment to support them? One of the beautiful things about Caribbean people is our resiliency, not only to climate change, but literally to everything. And what we have seen is that we have a next generation of agri-entrepreneurs. As Listra mentioned, there are a number of them who we, for some reason, don't seem to showcase. But these people have been able to actually find opportunities out of obstacles. Listra had mentioned Innovators Inc. in Barbados. Just as many farmers are facing the issues of lack of land access or the limitations of using small plots of land, what are you seeing younger farmers doing now? Going into modern technologies like Innogrow, where they're having 40-foot containers where they're planting indoor lettuce gardens and so on, because perhaps maybe they didn't have the access to land. What you are now seeing is farmers who possibly couldn't get their products into our supermarkets or into our hotels because of the cost of certifications or not meeting certain standards because they simply don't have the mentorship or the guidance. They're literally creating their own opportunities. They're creating their own marketplaces. We saw this quite clearly in the pandemic when we saw a lot of food online delivery systems bubbling up. And we've even seen some of our indigenous owners create markets internationally by connecting indigenous producers with external markets. And finally, in some countries like Jamaica, you are seeing fintech companies strictly for agriculture and smallholder farmers that have created blockchain technology to connect smallholder farmers to financial services. A case in point would be Farm Credibly in Jamaica. We already have the next generation of ag innovators. But how are we really showcasing them? And essentially, how are we supporting them?
Thank you very much, Kathleen. That is such a powerful statement to end your presentation on. You know, a lot of the times we talk about the youth being our leaders of tomorrow. And I have always been against that phrase because I do think our young people are the leaders of today. They are the innovators of today, and we do need to support them. We have come to our question and answer segment. So if any of our audience members have any burning questions, they can put it into the Q&A tab. So at this point, I'm going to ask my panelists to put on their camera. We do have some of the comments. You know, I saw a comment from Ken Roy in the chat, and he was saying, you know, another issue, especially when you go to financial institution, is explaining the marketability to investors of your agribusiness because of the lack of regional demographic and business data when making decision. So we have spoken about the obstacles and what is needed. Carlos and Laura spoke about better financial access, because again, it's a bit difficult if you're a young entrepreneur with no seed funding, no investors, and you are here struggling to get your innovation on the market to upscale it. Kathleen also spoke about that, and Listra was talking about the innovations in agriculture. My question is, how is it that we get this data to be able to shift the mindsets, not just of our financial institutions, but also of our policymakers? Who's going to take that question first?
Let me start the ball rolling, Alicia, by saying that first of all, our mindset has to change. I think a lot of the times you put a lot of emphasis, a lot of pressure on this sector, that sector, and the other. And we don't realize that the people heading those sectors come from us, they come from our communities, they come from our homes, they come from our nation. I think, and it's something that Carlos and I talk about all the time, there is a need for a re-engineering of our thought process. So a lot of the times we talk about, like you said, and it's something that I dislike, I like and I dislike, is the youth are our future, or the future of the leaders of the future. We like to say that, but what have we done to engender thought processes that are critical? We have not done anything to get them to be critical thinkers. We have not changed our syllabus to provide them with the skills that they need for today. So of course, there will be the leaders of the future and not today, because today they do not have the skills that are necessary for them to be the leaders of today. And if they aren't the leaders of today as they should be, then the youth of yesterday, who are our leaders today, similarly would not have the mindset and the skills to understand the need for innovation and to take a risk. So you will still find commercial banks will look at, as Kathleen said, they will continue to be risk adverse. They will continue to ask for collaterals. They will continue to ask you for things that you do not have, more than what you need for you to progress. And we talk about those innovation hubs, and we talk about those incubators, and we age discriminate. So we say it's for young people between the ages of 18 to 35. Well, young people between the ages of 18 to 35 oftentimes do not even know what they want, because they have not begun the process of getting to where they need to be when they were teenagers, if you see what I'm saying. Then we have governments that come out of the people, ministers who come out of the people. Let's take, for instance, in St. Lucia, we have a decade of innovation that started when, 3 years ago?
Yeah, well, 2 years.
2 years ago. And nothing has been done during that decade of innovations. And in 8 years, 7 years, that decade would have been over. And what have we done? What have we put in place? I think a lot of the times, we as the people, we have to start showcasing and start talking and start, let's not stop being menial and nitpicking at the little things, but focus on the things that could impact our future. Thereby, the noise is something that I wanted to talk about earlier in my presentation. The noise out there in our communities, in our environment, people like the bank managers, they will understand that noise. They will be able to decipher, they will be able to take out of it and sift through it and understand that there is a need for research and development. And out of that research and development, then comes all of those innovations that can make our lives different. And that is what they need to invest in. And it's something that Listra alluded to in her presentation as well. If you cannot quantify it, if you don't have it, how can you change it? How can you improve it? I can say the same thing for innovation. If we do not understand the noise, if we do not listen and try to decipher from the noise, then we cannot get to where we need to be in terms of getting funding and that kind of thing. So a lot of it has to do with re-engineering our mindset.
And I think that's what Kathleen was speaking to in her presentation, shifting perspective and changing the cultural mindset of farming, agriculture, and also agribusiness. And I think it's a term that we are not using to the fullest potential, agribusiness, because that is what it is. Listra, with your experience, are you able to weigh in on the conversation?
Yeah, I was thinking that in terms of the utility of data, I have found, especially for your policymakers, they have to show how it works for them. They have to see how the results will work for them. So I think collecting data just for the sake of collecting data makes no sense. We have to collect data that people can analyze and also share the results of the analysis to show how you have moved the needle. What is the impact that is caused? And I think collecting the correct data, showing how it makes the change that you want, so that it makes, if you're talking about the policymakers and the politician, how does it make them look good? So if they see that as something that is of utility to them, they will continue to collect the data or encourage the collection of the data. So it's about collecting the right type of data doing the right type of analysis, but also sharing the information from that analysis. For example, I keep saying at the University of the West Indies, it's a lot of good research that is going on, but hardly anybody knows about it because they're talking among themselves. We need to translate those results into information that is useful for people who need that information. I also think that if you look at the groups of, for example, women's groups, I know of a women's group in Guyana that has done extremely well with coconut water and so on. One of the ingredients of success has been mentorship. They have had people holding their hand along the way for a long time, not just a short project for 2 years. They have had continuous help over 5, 10 years, because that helps to build that trust. And I think that is what has to happen with the youth, especially when you're talking about the business sector. Identifying mentors within the business sector who can help them to show them how they can improve, what they need to do better, to be able to woo the business sector. They need those mentors to help them over a long period of time so that afterwards they can stand on their own. Thank you.
I think at this point, I mean, I do know the work that the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States is doing with the Global Green Growth Institute. So again, with GGGI, you can, just log on to www.oecs.int and search on the website. But they currently have an incubator and an accelerator program, and they are targeting green businesses. And they also have that mentorship aspect. So there are avenues, but it's really about access to opportunity and to information, as all of you have alluded to in your presentation. And so when we talk about access to opportunities, I'm going to group a few of the questions that we have. So we're talking about moving our people forward to a healthier population. So, you have this thing about, high fructose corn syrup and a healthier alternative, which would be cane sugar. We in the Caribbean, we have a long and complicated history with sugarcane, right? But people who want to get into that industry have to start somewhere. And it can be so very difficult to start. So are there any initiatives, or do you know where our young agri-entrepreneurs or interested people can go? Lystra, you mentioned a few of the mobile apps in your presentation. Keithlyn, you alluded to a few of the avenues, and so did Laura. Where do people go to find that kind of information, not just on startups, but things that have been done before, things that have been tried and tested, opportunities, resources, access to seed funding opportunities, or just a broader scope of ideas that can help them either start their businesses or upscale it or modify it?
Alicia, I'd just like to mention, it occurred to me when Laura and Carlos were actually speaking, I am currently an Ashoka Fellow. And essentially, when I started Helen's Daughters, I couldn't do so. I had to run it for 4 years while holding down a full-time job, which had me in New York at the UN. And it wasn't until the fellowship came that these are the types of fellowships that are there for social entrepreneurs. And essentially what Ashoka does is it provides you with a 3-year stipend to cover your personal expenses until your organization, your social enterprise comes to financial viability. And that was something that I wanted to mention to Laura and Carlos, because the Ashoka call is open for applications. You have to nominate yourself by the 16th of October. And I was actually the first English-speaking fellow from Ashoka. So essentially, one of the things that I vowed to myself is that I've been advocating for us to recruit more fellows in the English-speaking Caribbean. So that is definitely an opportunity, because it not only provides you with financial support, but it literally gives you introductions to angel investors, business support, and it's a lifetime fellowship. So while you get the funding for the first 3 years, you will never stop being a fellow. And this is within, you have at your fingertips, you are in a network and community of thousands of fellows. And I think these are some of the opportunities that for some reason, the Caribbean region, again, we have not been good at advocates and getting these types of organizations to our region. But that is one of the things that I'm trying to do with this fellowship as well.
Alicia, if you might permit me, Kiflin, can you give us some more information on that? Maybe put it in the chat or something so that we can jump on that, because I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Definitely.
I also know that the University of the West Indies is setting up one of these business development centers, particularly for the research that they're doing to take it to the next level. But I know it's some of it is now in an early stage of development. But it also speaks to the need for us to do, as Keithlin said, since the Caribbean does not have access to it, why don't we do it ourselves? We need to get up and do it ourselves rather than wait on others. If this is an area that is an area of need, getting all that information on possible angel investors, getting information on possible new businesses that are about to set up, and how do you help them? I remember listening to a group of young artists in Toronto talking about setting up a space for themselves where they got together as young people and decided, look, we need help with the art supplies. We need help with how do you set up a business in art? And they set up their own business themselves because you can't wait on people to do it for you. And I think if you have also people who are in your corner, especially in the government, St. Lucia, there's a golden opportunity now because you have a new government in place. You know, get your people who are willing to make a difference, to work with you. The Caribbean, we're talking about changing the ease of doing business because it's one of the most difficult places to do business now. What about putting all of this information that we have and all these needs that we have and saying to our governments, these are areas that I think we can work together, especially with the private sector now. COVID has, especially in the food industry, COVID has, to me, opened up a lot more the minds of the private sector to the opportunities in food and agriculture. So let us seize the opportunity so that we can get them more involved because they already have some of the expertise and experience in that area. And there are some who are actually willing to help.
And you know, on that note, Keithlin did post some resources in the chat. So our attendees, make sure you go in there. And also, you know, I mentioned the GGGI program earlier, and Listra, that comes directly to what you were saying. We need to learn to do things for ourselves and not depend on anyone else. And for GGGI, they are offering no interest loans for green entrepreneurs in the accelerator program. And you don't require any collateral. You just need to have been in operation for about 3 years and have your financial records to prove what it is your application is saying. So make sure you know, all of our attendees who are interested, try to, you know, go onto the OECS website and see whether or not this can help. And it is important that we all connect as a people, especially in our agri-entrepreneurship sector. I want to thank our very distinguished panel for coming on board. I do appreciate you, and I appreciate our attendees. The questions are coming so quick and so fast and so furious. So hopefully our panelists will be able to, you know, pop into our Q&A tab after our session and be able to respond to some of your questions. But we have in just a few minutes our opening keynote address by the powerful Jack Canfield. That is happening in about 10 to 12 minutes, and I don't want you to miss that session. So he will be delivering a presentation on leveling up requires solid innovations, necessary agility, and disruption, which is what we have started talking about here in this session. So you really need to make sure you catch that other part, and you know, it's sort of the pieces to the puzzle, and that is what the Sustainable Development Movement is about, giving you the different pieces to the puzzle from different angles to see how it is you can level up. So be sure to log on to that session in about 10 minutes. And remember, you can also connect and network at SDM 2021. Just head on over to our exhibit hall. We have over 45 exhibitors. You are able to connect with people in your field, in your areas of interest, and be able to level up on your own. We facilitate that for you. So head on over to the exhibit hall when you get a chance. And I must say a very special thank you to the people who made SDM 2021 possible. Our official partners, the World Bank, the Crop Project, the Global Environment Fund, the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They are, and then we have our platinum sponsor, you know, USAID, Thoughtful Digital Agency, our gold sponsors, Mexid and SRE, our bronze sponsor, the Food and Agriculture Organization. So, you know, it's one of the reasons we're talking agriculture and how to level up in agriculture, because the FAO is on board. To my distinguished presenters, thank you so much. You have given such wonderful insight from your particular areas of expertise and experience, and I am sure that the attendees are all the more enriched for what it is that you have brought to the table. Our development partners, thank you very much. And also the members of the private sector who have been so great to us here at the OECS SDM, and our staff at the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Commission. Without you, there would be no SDM 2021. And a special mention to Dwayne Tobia from iCast Media, who came on board last minute to save the day. I am Alicia Ali, and on behalf of everyone here at OECS SDM 2021, I am reminding you that we are still one Caribbean. Make sure you log into Jack Canfield's session next. Bye.